Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We live in a world of noise. There is constantly noise going on. If we live in the city, there's constant noise on the outside. If we live in the rural areas, there may be less noise, but there's also a constant chirping of the birds, rustling of the leaves. But in addition to the noise going on the outside, there is a constant noise going on in the inside. Our mind never leaves us alone. Our mind doesn't stop having thoughts. Our mind goes on and on unceasingly. And we sometimes wonder, can there be a break from all this noise? Can we enter into a state of silence? Can we enter into a state of peacefulness without the constant commotion of the world externally and the world internally, moving us and shaking us and hollering at us and constantly in our consciousness? Is it possible to find this state of silence? Well, it's possible, but it requires a certain amount of work, and it requires a certain amount of one-pointed concentration on finding reality. You see, as we live within the world of illusion, as we live outside of the realm of reality, the peacefulness that comes from reality is unavailable to us. It only becomes available to us when we redirect focus and then put in a concentrated effort on that redirection of focus. But we also need to know in which way that redirection of focus has to go. Our mind is this vast, vast, vast place. And we are constantly running through it into different parts of it and creating different scenarios and situations within it. Our mind is so vast that we can go from Toronto to Lahore in a matter of 2 seconds. We can go from Philadelphia to Medina in a matter of 1 second. We can go from New York to Scotland in a matter of a blink of an eye. All of us can do this. All of us can travel these great distances in the blink of an eye. How's that possible? It's possible because we have this vast internal world that is a duplicate of the external world that we see. Everything that we see on the outside is also inside of us. And all of the commotion and all of the noise and all of the disruptions and all of the difficulties and all of the wars and all of the tribulations and all of the hurricanes and the tornadoes and all of the monsoons that are going on outside are also going on inside. And we all need to find shelter from the storm. We all need to find a place where we are safe and we are outside of the magnetisms and the glitters and the pulls and the pushes and the reactions and the interactions with this world. We're outside of the vengeance. We're outside of the retribution. We're outside of the jealousy. We're outside of all of the emotional eruptions that occur in the world. God created everything. And within it, there's a secret. There's his secret. And that secret is his essence. His essence is a secret within creation, and it's hidden deep inside of us. You see, there is a portion of us that is creation. We aren't quite cognizant of how it came about. We aren't cognizant of the fact that it's illusory, but we're told that this body that we see is a created thing. It's not a natural thing. Allah, on the other hand, is a natural thing. He was before creation. He is now. He will be after creation disappears. He is other than creation. He is beyond creation. He is the secret of creation. We, as individuals, must find this secret. So here we are. We were put here. We were put here by Allah as a created being. And we have a certain level of consciousness. We can see what goes on around us, and we can interact with what goes on around us. And we interact in many, many, many different ways. And these interactions that we have with the world become our life. And the sadnesses and the happinesses that go on in these interactions become our life. And the wealth and the fame or the tragedies, the difficulties become our life. But we have to ask ourselves, are these things truly our life? We have to ask a bigger question. What is our life? And the easy answer, and we all know this answer, there's a span to this life. We have lines around our throat. These are like a hangman's noose. They indicate to us that these will be tightened and life will end. My sheikh used to wear beads around his neck. And he said these beads that he wore around his neck were not for counting. You can't count God. He said the reason for the beads around his neck was to remind him that one day these will be tightened around his neck and his time here will go away. Now, man doesn't stay conscious of this fact. Man doesn't stay conscious of truth. He stays more conscious of illusion than he stays of truth. So his attention, man's attention, is not towards the overall picture of man. His attention is towards the action and reaction to his interaction with illusion. So we have something happen to us. We react to that something. That leads to something else. And our life becomes a life of action and reaction without thought. Action and reaction without silence. Action and reaction without reflection. And unless we can get to the point where there is silence, no reflection will happen, because in order to get reflection, you have to stop for a minute. You have to stop from this constant action and reaction to the illusory world that surrounds us and influences us and is constantly driving us in one way or another. So we have our mind and desire, which sees and reacts and attempts to fulfill the needs that desire pops up. And this life becomes the life for most people in the world. We need food, so we spend time creating food. We need shelter, so we spend time creating shelter. We have lusts, so we spend time fulfilling those lusts. And the life becomes more and more sophisticated and more subtle, and people become more sophisticated and more subtle. But in reality, what's the difference between a man in a rocket ship going to Mars and a man in a rice paddy growing rice? They've got the same problems. They've got the same life and death scenario facing them. They just go about things, doing things differently. We need to become conscious of the overall picture of our existence. And there's only one way that this consciousness can occur within us, and that's through something called wisdom. And we, each of us, need to become wise. And in the pursuit of wisdom, we are also in the pursuit of reality. The Arabic word for reality is haq. Haq is one of the names of God. So reality, in the way that we use it as one of the names of God, is the eternal truth, the essential truth, the truth that is not illusory, the truth that is beyond illusion, the truth that goes on from the time before birth, through this life, and to the afterlife, the truth that is immutable, the truth that doesn't change, the truth that is our Creator, and the truth that is His essence, and the truth that will be our essence if we truly find it. So we have to look at our consciousness. And our consciousness on the lowest level is like an animal: sense, awareness, and intellect. You become aware of your outside reality, the worldly reality, the illusory reality, and you react to that reality. Some call this the robotic life: action and reaction, almost automatic reactions. Animals have these instincts. Animals seem to have some kind of inner ability to react and know certain things automatically. But there's a space beyond this action and reaction. In order to be able to understand that space, there has to come an event in your life that causes a halt to this ongoing interplay with illusion. Sometimes it's an accident that puts you in the hospital for 3 weeks. Sometimes it's the death of a loved one that makes you realize, my God, what's going on? This is going to happen to me too. But it shocks you into understanding something else is going on here that I'm not paying any attention to. And why am I not paying any attention to it? And that's when you begin to ask the simple, basic questions. Where did I come from? What am I doing here? And where am I going? What is this life? And what is the purpose of this life? This we call discrimination. This we call the first focus towards reality. And it's at this stage, when we ask these questions, we begin to realize that nobody we've met knows the answers to any of these questions. Nobody we know has a handle on these questions. Nobody has ever talked to us about this in a way that made sense and in a way that we understood. And so we begin to understand we need to find somebody who knows the answers to these questions. We need to find somebody who can define life for us. We need to find somebody who can tell us what's real, what's illusion, what takes us from here to there, and what keeps us here, what keeps us stagnant, and what allows us to rise, what keeps us mundane, and what allows us to be transcendent, what takes us higher, and what keeps us lower. We need to ask these questions, and we need to begin to understand what the answers to these questions are. At that next level, we begin to look for the answers to these questions. We begin to try and figure out the meaning of life. We begin to try and understand the difference between the mundane and the transcendent, the difference between illusion and reality. We try to understand the difference between that which is of the world and that which is divine. We are cognizant of the fact that there's a God. We are cognizant of the fact that there's a higher being that is transcendent to the nature that we are. But what is that higher being? And what's our relationship to that higher being? And how do we find that higher being? What is it that allows us to become close to that higher being? What's the path that we have to take in order to come to know that higher being? And that's when we begin to realize that everything that we know, everything that we've lived through, everything that we've called our life has just been a stepping stone to get us to this point. And unless we leave all of those conceptions behind, unless we're willing to do away with everything we thought we knew, we aren't going to be able to travel beyond it. We have to develop a new personality, a new consciousness, a new understanding, a new way of looking at things. And it begins with having an absolute faith that there is a creator, and this creator is the one who runs this whole show. And we are subservient to that creator. We need to become slaves of that creator, slaves in the way that we understand his kingliness and his dominion over us. And we need to understand the relationship of that dominion. And this comes from finding someone with wisdom who has experienced this and who can tell us what that relationship is. And he explains to us about pre-creation, creation, and the afterlife. And he tells us that God is the natural thing that existed before creation. And then God, through the love in his being, and this enormous love in his being, this enormous compassion in his being, this enormous mercy in his being, wanted to create a being who could know him, who could know love, who could know mercy, who could know compassion. And he went about forming creation. And he made creation out of the elements which he created. And these elements had a time span to them and were not divine. But he put into this creation a divine spark. He put into this creation a portion of his divinity. And it was his intention that each of us, each of his creations, each of his human creation, which is the zenith of creation, find that spark within us, find that divinity within us, find that creator within us, find that essence within us, find that essential being within us. And in finding that, we find the truth of ourselves. And how do we find that? We have to build a new body within us. We have to build a body that rejects illusion. We have to build a body that rejects this robotic interaction with the world. We have to build a body that is beyond this reaction to the world. We have to build a structure that is configured not of the elements that made us. We have to build a structure of the elements that are eternal. And the difference between that which is eternal and that which isn't eternal is form. Form is not eternal. Form has a time span. Form was created. That which is eternal is that which was natural, that which existed pre-creation, that which is and always will be. And we need to come to know that which is that natural thing. And we have to build up faith, certitude, conviction, determination in that natural thing, that it is in fact what runs creation and runs the universes and runs all that we see, hear, and know, and that we are part of that. So we need to believe certain principles about death. And it's only when our faith, certitude, and determination become strong enough that our faith is so powerful in our Creator that we lose our attachment to illusion, that we lose our attachment to Maya, that we lose our attachment to what goes on in this vast mind of ours that is constantly coming up with scenarios that have to do with the interface with the world and our position within the world. Our mind has created this man or woman and follows it around what it does in the world and sets up situations to protect it, to aggrandize it, to make it wealthy, to make it famous, to make it beautiful. All of these extraneous things to reality that all have to do with form, that all have to do with making this form beautiful and to making this form permanent, none of which is possible. So we spend a lifetime in an endeavor that has no ability to succeed. And this can become very frustrating. And man becomes frustrated when he sees this endeavor fading away from him, when he sees the riches he's dreamt about not going to happen, the fame he's dreamt about not going to happen, the life he thought would never end is beginning to disappear. What's going on? And this is a place where you need a moment of silence, where you need a moment of reflection, where you need a moment to be able to contemplate as opposed to reacting. This is a time when you have to take stock of yourself and take stock of everything that's going on. Some people call this the beginning of meditation. My sheikh says meditation is beginning to discover reality. And that's really what meditation is. And in this attempt to discover reality, there are stages. First, you have to lose your allegiance to your mind. You have to stop believing everything that the mind tells you. You can't just do what it says. People who are considered insane do whatever the mind says. They'll walk by a bridge and the bridge will say, and the mind will say, jump, and they jump. Normal people won't jump, but they'll chase money, they'll chase women, they'll chase drugs, they'll chase alcohol. It's subtle. The question is, how far can you remove yourself from what the mind says and from its interface with illusion? And can you be strong enough within yourself so that all of the weaknesses that are within your mind, all of the instability that's within your mind won't bring you back to where you were before, which is action and reaction? Let me get a little comfort here. Let me somehow slow down. Let me somehow go to sleep. Let me somehow get drugged. Let me somehow give in to my lust. Let me somehow look for some relief in a worldly way. Again, we look for solutions where there are none. And as we begin to realize that, we also begin to realize that we're tied to the world in so many ways. We're tied by our relations. We're tied by our relatives. We're tied by our race. We're tied by our religion. We're tied by our caste. We're tied by our color. We're tied in so many ways. And these things have become important in our lives. Our race becomes important to us. There's something in the United States now called identity politics, which means your political point of view is to defend your personal identity, to bring that forward and to make a path that's smooth for that identity. But we don't realize that unless all identities have a smooth path, no identity can have a smooth path. Unless all identities are given equality, no identity can be given equality. These things are lost because of our relationship with ourself and who we think we are. We don't know who we are. We are all children of one mother and father. And until we understand that and see the unity of all mankind, we will never understand our connection to our Creator, because we've lost the essential understanding of the nature of our Creator, who created everything and put his essence within everyone. He didn't leave anyone out. We leave people out because of our need to be separate and to be special. This need to be separate and to be special is the hallucination of the mind, the hallucination of that desire within us that wants to make us better than everyone else. The prophet said to his daughter at the time of judgment, it is not going to matter that you were the daughter of a prophet. It's going to matter who you were. So we have to detach ourselves from our blood ties. We have to detach ourselves for our relations. And we have to detach ourselves from this elemental makeup that we are. We have to detach ourselves from the earth. Within the earth are gold and gems and wealth. We have to detach ourselves from those needs. In the earth is fire, which is the ego, that destructive thing that wants to make this bigger and everything else lesser. We have to detach ourselves from that. There's water, the constant lust of water for recreation, the constant lust for needs of things. We have to detach ourselves from that. There's the air, which wanders endlessly around the world the way our mind wanders endlessly. We have to detach ourselves from that. There's the ether and the colors and the sadnesses and the happinesses and all of the emotional reaction we have with the world. We have to detach ourselves from that. There's a huge jungle of things that we have to detach ourselves from. There's a huge jungle of things that we have to move through in order to find the truth. And we also have to lose the fear of what our death is going to do to us. We have to begin to understand that it is a normal part of the process and is a step before you go on to the next step. And wisdom is the only thing that's going to take you through all this. Wisdom is the light that's going to bring a light into your life. And what is this wisdom? It begins with faith and certitude and determination in your Creator and the purity of your Creator and the holiness of your Creator. And then it takes understanding the gracious, divine qualities of your Creator and bringing them into your being. Justice and peace and mercy and compassion and love have to become who we are, without exception, have to become what we believe in, without exception, have to become our truth, without exception. And every exception that we make to understanding that is going to pull us further from the truth and is going to make us more fearful of what goes on in this life and what goes on as this life ends. The only way we will find peace with our situation is to find peace with God's qualities. And finding peace with God's qualities means bringing those qualities within us. Only light can see light. When these qualities enter within us, a reaction forms within us, something like a chemical reaction, which continues to take us further. So not only is our effort working, but these qualities are working simultaneously with our effort to help us get further in this path of transcending. The words that were told by the Sheikh, the truths that were told, when they enter into us, they also intermingle with all of the positive qualities within us, and again create a force within us that drives us towards the truth. So we have to be determined to go towards the truth. We have to be determined to leave behind that which isn't real. We have to be determined to understand the difference. We have to be determined to come to know our Lord, because that is our salvation. There is no other salvation. Our Lord is our salvation, and our Lord makes himself available to us when we make ourselves available to him. And how do we make ourselves available to him? By becoming like him. So we have to put our life on a course to become like our Lord. So we need to study our Lord. We need to study the truth. We have to stop studying illusion, and we have to stop being focused on ourselves, but be focused on the nature of what humanity is and our place within that humanity. What is it to be human? What is it to be human and transcend into eternity? There's an old spiritual that says, heaven, everybody talking about, nobody going there. Heaven, why ain't they going there? Why aren't they going there? Because they don't understand the nature of heaven. They don't understand what heaven is. And what heaven is merging with the qualities of God and then merging with God. One meditation technique that you might try is look into a mirror. Stare into the mirror until you disappear, and all that's left is light. For some, with enough concentration, this will occur. In truth, we will all disappear. And the question is, will we disappear into the light? So only light can see light. Only truth can know truth. Only God can know God. So we have to pray that Allah allows this to happen for us, that our light becomes the true light, that our truth becomes the true truth, and our transcendence takes us to that place where we are capable of merging with that reality. May that be what happens to each and every one of us. May Allah give us the mercy to allow that to happen. May he give us the mercy so that we can understand how that happens, and may he allow us to walk that path. Ameen, Ameen, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.